The images are all over social media. Immigration agents dragging people out of their cars, tackling people to the ground, and entering homes of suspected undocumented immigrants. For months, ICE agents have flooded cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, and Charlotte, provoking rebuke from local authorities and support from those who want to crack down on immigration. I'm Karina Nova. This is ABC 7 News in Depth. Today, we are looking deeper at the immigration impact. The intensity of immigration enforcement has reached levels not seen before in the United States, as the Trump administration aims to deport 1 million undocumented immigrants a year. The latest figures from the Department of Homeland Security say more than 527,000 undocumented immigrants have been deported this year. Plus, another 1.6 million more have voluntarily self-deported. Groups fact-checking these statistics say the government has not provided evidence to back up these two figures. But the Migration Policy Institute, a nonpartisan think tank, estimates the number of deportations, both forced and voluntary, could be much less, about 300,000 this year. For the first time in a decade, deportations from the interior of the United States have outpaced apprehensions at the border. Some of these detentions are happening inside immigration courts during scheduled hearings. That's opened up a new battlefront between the Trump administration and immigration judges and lawyers. A violent confrontation outside San Francisco's immigration court. Protesters clash with ICE agents after an arrest outside a hearing. While these images are grabbing headlines, it's what's happening inside immigration courts that's creating a climate of fear, not just for immigrants, but for judges and lawyers as well.
I think there is a valid fear amongst the immigration community of attorneys and legal service providers that we are putting ourselves at risk, putting our careers at risk, our license at risk, if we're too vocal about the work that we do.
That's because the White House has targeted immigration attorneys. In March, President Donald Trump issued an executive order accusing immigration lawyers of coaching their clients to lie in asylum petitions. The president then ordered the U.S. Attorney General to sanction attorneys who engage in what he called frivolous and unreasonable litigation.
And the language in that executive order was very threatening, that by helping someone apply for asylum, we're violating our ethical rules as attorneys, and that we'll be investigated and could be charged and lose our licenses if we continue to help people seeking asylum.
The executive order is written in such a way that it suggests that even attorneys who are acting as zealous advocates to help individuals pursue relief and are presenting truthful claims may be targeted for their zealous advocacy.
Eilis Shugel was an immigration judge. She says in 25 years practicing immigration law, she has never seen what's been happening this year in immigration courts.
We're already seeing a large number of people being arrested who, under prior administrations, would not have been arrested.
To understand what's happening, we need to take a step back to when caravans of immigrants were arriving at the southern border when Joe Biden was president. To alleviate the crisis, immigrants without a visa were allowed to enter the country under what's called humanitarian parole. They were allowed to then apply for asylum. The Center for Immigration Studies estimates 2.8 million people were granted parole this way. Days after taking office, Trump ended humanitarian parole for recent migrants. Many of those immigrants are now being targeted for deportation when they go to an immigration hearing.
What's happening is DHS is moving to dismiss the removal proceedings so that DHS can pursue something called expedited removal.
Immigrants put into expedited removal can still present an asylum claim with the Department of Homeland Security. But it has to be done while they are in detention, where they don't have the same protections they have in immigration court. If DHS denies their claim, they can be deported immediately.
Individuals are more likely to have representation if they're in non-detained removal proceedings. By putting them into detention, it reduces the likelihood of representation and reduces the likelihood of being granted relief.
There's been an ongoing purge of immigration judges since Trump took office.
I, Donald John Trump.
On Inauguration Day, the Justice Department fired the acting head of the immigration court system and 3 top officials. Since then, more than 100 immigration judges have been fired. Most were hired in the past 2 years and were still in their probationary period.
Oh my God!
Others, like Jennifer Payton, who oversaw the Chicago Immigration Court, was fired as assistant chief judge.
A group of 7 assistant chief immigration judges like myself all received emails in the afternoon firing without cause.
Immigration judges are different than criminal court judges. They're not elected. They're civil servants and can be fired like other federal employees. In San Francisco, 4 judges have been fired in the past 3 months. Several of them were approving more than 90% of their asylum cases. For comparison, just 4% of asylum seekers are being approved at the Adelanto ICE Detention Center in California. Immigration judges we spoke to say they are getting policy memos pressuring them to reject more asylum cases.
They can't flat out say, like, if you don't do this, you will get fired. But it kind of puts pressure on the judges, knowing if they don't follow the advice in that memo or they do something that contradicts the advice in that memo, that they might be putting themselves at risk for being fired or being targeted or being reassigned.
Immigration courts are now short about 200 judge positions. It's expected that the judges that'll be hired will be more focused on the Trump administration's goals. The increase in detentions at the country's immigration courts has given rise to a new type of demonstration.
We essentially come out, stand here, keep an eye on things.
This demonstrator is one of several who regularly stands outside San Francisco's immigration court, keeping an eye out for ICE agents.
We're doing protective presence at the immigration court. The idea is that if enough people are here, ICE won't bother abducting people out of the community.
They hand out informational leaflets and offer to accompany immigrants to their appointments. They're not the only ones. Sarah Frank demonstrated outside Concord's immigration court.
I'm out here because I want immigrants to know that they matter, that we support them, and what is happening with ICE is not acceptable to the American people.
I'm recording people's names. I'm recording the country from which they came in case they get detained.
This woman is one of dozens of volunteer court watchers who were sitting in on hearings at both the San Francisco and Concord immigration courts.
Immigration courts are open to the public, and it's very important that we have observers there to make sure that due process is being followed and that the immigrants are aware of their rights.
Observers can guide immigrants without a lawyer to legal help.
I saw a situation where a kid, she was I think 14 or 15 years old, who was asked to make a decision. Now, she couldn't do it, so the judge made the decision for her.
Court observers are also there in case ICE agents try to detain someone outside the courtroom.
We like to have more people there in case someone needs to go outside the room to accompany an immigrant out. And then we like to have more people there in case there is an incident in which someone does feel intimidated.
Detentions in the hallways of immigration court have become contentious. In June, New York City Comptroller Brad Lander was arrested while trying to hold on to a person being detained by immigration agents.
And they can get physical pretty quickly if you try to interfere with their arrest.
Despite the risks, more than 100 people turned out for a recent training session in Berkeley on how to be a court observer.
We cannot fully prevent ICE arrests for now, but what we can do is we can try to collect as much information as possible before the individual is transferred to a remote detention facility.
It's important to follow people's whereabouts because once they're picked up, they get lost in the system. And if we know who they were, it's much easier to follow them within the system to look out for their rights.
Since the courtroom arrests began in May, there's been an increase in the number of immigrants who are too afraid to show up to a hearing after seeing images of people arrested as they leave court.
It seemed to me at first there weren't as many no-shows, but there are a lot of no-shows now. People are really scared.
Not showing up could mean their case is dismissed, making them immediately deportable.
You're required to be there, and if you don't show up, you basically abandon any claim that you have to stay in the United States legally.
Coming up, life turned upside down for a Bay Area man. We travel to Mexico to talk to one of the first people deported after being detained in San Francisco Immigration Court. And later, the Trump administration wants to change birthright citizenship. We look back at the role San Francisco Chinatown played in establishing the constitutional right. Welcome back. Mexicans top the list of immigrants deported from the U.S. this fiscal year. That's followed by immigrants from Honduras, Guatemala, and Venezuela. Among them is a Bay Area man named Miguel, whose life changed in an instant during an immigration appointment in San Francisco. We visited him in Mexico City as he fought to return home to Livermore.
Happy birthday, dear Miguel. Happy birthday to you.
It's a bittersweet moment for Miguel Angel Lopez. His son just called him from Livermore for his 47th birthday. The life he enjoyed a few months ago was wiped away when he was deported to Mexico. His wife flew to visit him for his birthday.
Not having my kids here breaks my heart.
Miguel lived in Livermore for 27 years. Now he's in the outskirts of Mexico City, away from his wife Rosa and his 3 kids, all of whom are U.S. citizens.
I'm not used to this. I'm used to get up every morning, go to work, and come back and see my family. I never thought this was going to happen.
Miguel emigrated illegally to the U.S. when he was 18. He and Rosa were married in 2001, and she applied for his legal residency. But ICE rejected it because he lied about being a U.S. citizen when he crossed the border. He's been fighting to stay in the U.S. ever since.
It was like 17 years that I was reporting to immigration until last time that I went, they detained me.
He had a routine appointment at the San Francisco Immigration Office on May 27th.
So as soon as we got in the elevator, he told me that I was going to be detained.
Within hours, Miguel was taken to an immigration detention center in McFarland and then another one near Bakersfield.
They were like, you're going to get deported. You're going to go to Tijuana.
It's either I'm here with him and my kids are back at home, or I'm home with my kids and he's out here.
Miguel's deportation has upended the entire family. He was the sole wage earner. Up until his deportation, he was a welder and a machinist at Went Winery.
It's kind of hard to survive here with the pay that they get here than to have to support my family.
Since President Trump took office, more than 56,000 Mexicans have been deported.
Y te damos todos los apoyos que dé el gobierno de México.
In a social media post, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum promoted the government's Mexico Embraces You program. It's supposed to help deportees find jobs. But only 4% of the 40,000 people deported by mid-June had found jobs.
The process of individuals like fitting their skills to the local job market can be more complicated. Mexico has a precarious labor market and also a lot of informality.
Nancy Landa is an immigration researcher in Mexico City. She was deported herself after living 20 years in the U.S.
Obviously, the living standards in Mexico, are different. But if you have financial commitments to support family in the U.S., it's virtually impossible to gain that salary that you need to support family in the U.S.
As a certified welder, Miguel made $44 an hour. An equivalent job in Mexico earns less than $3 an hour.
I could probably just make money to support myself, not my family.
We have a house, and that is something he's worked really hard to have for our family. And I'm scared of losing my home.
Miguel says he's thinking of cashing out his 401k to pay bills. A GoFundMe for the family has raised $56,000.
It's difficult for him. It's hard to find work, and what there is not well paid.
Low wages are just one worry. Miguel is living with his father in a rough neighborhood. A younger brother was killed outside the home by robbers who wanted his vehicle.
There's a gunshot right here.
Miguel shows a bullet hole from another shooting. He says it was to intimidate the family.
I've been getting anxiety, something that I've never had, because there's times I can't control myself of how I feel. And I try to be strong in front of my kids, but I just break down and I can't go to sleep at night just thinking that we're so far away from each other.
Miguel was deported hours before a district court judge issued an order that allowed him to remain in the country as he fights removal orders. The next hearing is in October. The family remains hopeful he can return to the Bay Area.
Well, we're gonna go fishing.
Tomorrow, we're going to bring you back tomorrow.
Thank you. I wish.
Coming up, U.S. citizens caught up in deportations. It's not the first time this has happened.
They were not going to just profile people and assume that everybody in that club was undocumented.
The nightclub incident that gave rise to San Francisco's sanctuary city law and the dark history of mass deportations. U.S. citizens detained by immigration agents. An investigation by ProPublica has found more than 170 cases of U.S. citizens detained at raids and protests. But the Department of Homeland Security says these claims are false and that ICE agents do not detain U.S. citizens despite many documented cases investigated by news organizations. For now, the Supreme Court has allowed immigration agents to detain people based on their appearance or accent. Critics say it's racial profiling of Latinos. And it's not the first time Latinos, even U.S. citizens, have been targeted for mass deportations.
It was a Saturday night like many others in San Francisco. The nightclubs along Mission Street were busy as usual. The year was 1989.
I was in my 30s, and I've always liked to go to Latino clubs.
Patricia Aguayo was at the popular Club Elegante.
I was sitting at the bar, and all of a sudden, several San Francisco police officers walked in, and ICE. They locked the door and said nobody could leave. Who was to ever think that this was going to turn into a deportation?
Immigration agents did not have a search warrant, but held everyone in place to check their identification.
It was a well-known club. They knew that it was predominantly Latino.
Patricia is a native San Franciscan, and she felt racially profiled.
I was legally here, wanted to let them know that they were not going to just profile people and assume that everybody in that club was undocumented.
Patricia and the ACLU filed a class action lawsuit claiming their constitutional rights were violated. They were detained and questioned simply because they were Latinos. They won.
When I came out of that immigration raid, I was stunned. Just because I look this way, I'm going to be profiled and stopped.
The incident led to an expansion of the city's sanctuary policies, forbidding local law enforcement from cooperating with immigration agents. Immigrant advocates say raids at places where Latinos gather may come back under the Trump administration.
The last time President Trump was in office, 7-Eleven stores and convenience stores were subject to immigration raids in neighborhoods where Latinos were heavily populated, and is designed to frighten and terrify the immigrant community and encourage what's called self-deportation.
The United States has had 2 previous mass deportations of primarily Mexican immigrants in the last 100 years. The first happened during the Great Depression, when unemployment was high.
This was done through mass arrests by state and local police. People were rounded up who looked Mexican, were put on buses, trains to the U.S.-Mexico border and dumped.
It was called the Mexican repatriation. It's estimated 1 million people of Mexican ancestry were removed from the United States and returned to Mexico, many of them U.S. citizens. Some historians say 2/3 of those forced to leave were U.S.-born children of immigrant parents.
In effect, what occurred was an ethnic cleansing, a removal of people of a particular background.
A second mass deportation happened in the 1950s. It was called Operation Wetback.
A wetback was an epithet used to refer to Mexicans, and it refers to the stereotypical Mexican immigrant who swims the Rio Grande and has a wet back. It's hate speech, it's an epithet, it's an insult.
The U.S. government carried a military-type operation. Immigration officials went to job sites and deported immigrants who were caught there, went to schools and deported immigrants who were caught there. Their family members often didn't know where those people had been sent, what had happened to them.
And just like the mass deportation of the 1930s, many of those deported were U.S. citizens.
They couldn't leave their children in the United States by themselves, so they were forced to take them with them. And this is a deportation campaign that Donald Trump has said he is going to imitate.
On day one, I will launch the largest deportation program in American history.
The Trump administration says its mass deportation will first target those immigrants with criminal records.
Prioritizing the people who pose the most danger and removing those people, that's certainly going to happen, but it doesn't mean that they're going to just turn a blind eye to everybody else.
There's still Border Patrol. 2 weeks before Trump's inauguration day, immigration agents conducted raids in Kern County, targeting immigrants with criminal records. Cameras show Border Patrol agents descend onto a Bakersfield Chevron gas station. Agents lingered and questioned Latino customers. Children born in the United States with undocumented parents could again be caught in the net.
You better start packing now.
Tom Homan has said that there's no reason why people have to be separated from their families. They can make a choice. It is their choice to either, go home with their entire family or leave the parts of their family that are citizens. Enforcing laws breaks up families all the time. You send somebody to prison, you're breaking up a family. And it's a consequence of what the individual did.
We had citizen children who were in effect deported with their parents and were in effect told, even though you're a citizen, you're not a citizen like white Americans. It had a tremendous impact on the sense of belonging of people of Mexican ancestry, and it lingers to this day.
Leanne Melendez, ABC 7 News.
Up next, we step back in time to 19th century San Francisco and the landmark case that guaranteed citizenship for anyone born in the United States, and attempts by the Trump administration to overturn that right. I'm Karina Nova. This is ABC 7 News in Depth. Today, we're looking deeper at the immigration impact. Birthright citizenship guarantees citizenship for almost everyone born in the United States. But the Trump administration is challenging that right. The case has reached all the way to the Supreme Court. It's been there before in a case born out of San Francisco's Chinatown. ABC 7 News reporter Leanne Melendez has a look at the history.
You see the sign camera zone over there? That is the location of where Wong Kim Ark was born.
The story of birthright citizenship as we know it today begins here, on the corner of Grant Avenue and Sacramento Street.
Wong Kim Ark was a person of Chinese ancestry, born to Chinese parents who were immigrants.
Wong Kim Ark was born in 1873. His parents, like many Chinese immigrants, came to California for opportunities after the gold rush. But competition for jobs led to resentment.
We have Asian hate today, nothing like what they were 1870 to 1890. They were murder, burned out, hung, massacred.
The U.S. then passed the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, preventing Chinese laborers from coming into the country.
So if you were a Chinese in America after 1882, you were totally excluded, not only from coming, but if you were here in America, you cannot be a naturalized citizen.
Even though Wong Kim Ark was born in the U.S., his citizenship was questioned. In 1895, as he was coming back from a visit to China, he was detained at the port of San Francisco.
And they say, look, you might have been born in San Francisco, but that doesn't make you a U.S. citizen. Yes, black people, white people, everybody else who's born in the United States is a U.S. citizen, but not Chinese.
Wong Kim Ark was a cook. He was in his early 20s. He had no money. So the community realized how important birthright citizenship is for Chinese in America.
San Francisco's Chinatown at the time was run by a coalition of community groups.
This is the Chinese Six Company. This is the City Hall for Chinatown.
The Chinese Six Companies raised money from Chinatown residents and hired high-powered lawyers. They took the case all the way to the Supreme Court.
And the question was whether race mattered with regard to birthright citizenship. Are you a birthright citizenship if you're born in the United States to non-citizen parents, even if you're not white?
The country had been debating the issue throughout the 19th century. In the 1857 Dred Scott decision, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled black people born in the United States were not citizens. But then the Civil War ended slavery and the country adopted the 14th Amendment.
14th Amendment says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. A lot of courts said this is very clear. Any person born in the United States is a citizen. It doesn't say white people, doesn't say black people. It says all persons, and so it applies to Chinese.
The Supreme Court agreed. But those who want to get rid of birthright citizenship say the words subject to the jurisdiction thereof makes undocumented immigrants ineligible.
To be subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, if we go and live outside the United States, the government still has some purchase over us. We have to file tax returns. A non-citizen who leaves the United States, once they are outside the territory of the United States government has no authority over them and cannot require anything. Here we're talking about people who are here illegally. The children will be recognized as a citizen of whatever country those parents came from, but that doesn't mean they should be recognized as citizens of the United States.
The citizenship clause of the 14th Amendment doesn't say anything about your parents. It says any person who's born subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. Even if the parents have relationships to some foreign jurisdiction, the child doesn't. The child is born here. The child is subject to draft registration, subject to pay taxes. It doesn't say the parents have to be subject to the jurisdiction of the United States.
Birthright citizenship was later adopted by Congress.
They put it in the U.S. Code. That means regardless of whether it's right or wrong as a constitutional matter, it is the law as a matter of statute. Unless Congress wants to change it, which they can, it's going to stay.
This is a picture of my father.
The debate is personal for Norman Wong. Norman's father was either Wong Kim Ark's son or grandson. Records of that time leave some doubt.
I have a fractured family history.
That fractured history includes his mother.
She was still 16, probably, when they had to leave.
The picture shows his mother's family with their bags packed during World War II. They were forced to leave their San Leandro home and sent to a U.S. concentration camp in Utah, simply for being of Japanese descent.
You deny your own people their citizenship rights and live as a total underclass forever. And their children. That's not supposed to be the American way.
Leanne Melendez, ABC 7 News.
Coming up, they own 2 Oakland restaurants and they're undocumented. We look at immigrants pursuing the American dream despite their immigration status. It's estimated 14 million undocumented immigrants live in the United States. Among them are more than 500,000 who arrived as children and are now protected from deportation under DACA, or Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. DACA has allowed them to get work permits and find jobs. Here's ABC 7 News reporter Leanne Melendez again with a story of a DACA recipient who opened a successful restaurant.
It's lunchtime and the line at Las Guerreras Kitchen keeps getting longer.
Do you like spicy or no?
The restaurant has developed a following since it opened 5 years ago in downtown Oakland.
I am eating the pozole and it's very good.
I'll usually work my way down the menu throughout the month.
You will find barbacoa, cóctel de camarón. All of these recipes are comida costeña.
Food from the Mexican Pacific coast.
These are the dishes you would have in Zihuatanejo.
Las Guerreras Kitchen is so popular, they opened a seafood restaurant next door specializing in ceviches. and this butterflied fish with 2 marinades. There's even a lover's octopus.
Si te lo comes, te enamoras.
It's said to help people fall in love. This could easily be a story for foodies, but while everything seems rosy, there is a sense of uneasiness. The restaurant is owned by a mother and daughter team. Ofelia Barajas is undocumented and her daughter, Reina Maldonado, is protected under DACA. They could be targets of the Trump administration's deportation campaign.
I was never lied to by my parents about being undocumented. My parents were very honest with me. You can't call the police because we will all be separated.
Reina stayed with her grandparents in Mexico when her parents emigrated to the United States looking for work. When she was 6, she made the treacherous journey to the U.S., crossing the border illegally.
It's a very vivid memory of mine. We were in the back of a big truck. I just had a very traumatic experience.
Reina's parents were working in restaurants around San Francisco. Then in 2002, Ofelia started her own business selling tamales on the street. When Reina saw a street vendor get arrested by immigration enforcement agents, it sent her head spinning.
My mom was a street vendor herself. That really scared me once I understood what it meant to be undocumented.
It makes no sense to expel talented young people who, for all intents and purposes, are Americans.
When President Barack Obama created DACA in 2012 to protect certain undocumented people who came to the U.S. as children from deportation, Reina was cautious. She waited 3 years to apply.
I did it with fear because I had to give all of my information. I had to give all of my parents' information.
Yet DACA let Reina get a Social Security card and apply for loans and grants to help grow her mother's food business. They joined the food incubator La Cocina and opened their first restaurant in 2019.
During the time that I've had DACA, I've actually been able to be very successful. We opened this business. We're opening our new cevicheria. We have been able to hire 15 people with this business.
While undocumented immigrants are often labeled as a public charge, Reina and her mom pay business and payroll taxes, but don't qualify for federal benefits.
Pagamos impuestos y hacemos todo como vamos con la ley.
The future of DACA is uncertain. Republicans have challenged it in court. In January, a federal court let DACA remain in effect for current beneficiaries. But it's unknown if the Trump administration will let people like Reina renew their work authorization.
We're in limbo. We're trying to figure it out, how to still stay here if DACA gets taken away. Right now, it's the fear that they're going to come after us with all of our information.
DACA has given recipients permission to travel abroad. Last year, Reina returned to Mexico for the first time since she was 6. She reunited with her grandparents and collected old family recipes. Ofelia isn't so lucky. She can't cross the border because of her legal status. That's prevented her from seeing her mother. It's been 27 years.
Uno les manda dinero, le manda a comprar cosas, pero es como un vacío que quieres llenar, pero no lo llenas. Nunca va a ser lo mismo. Dale un abrazo.
They fill that emptiness with a call every morning.
Ami.
Reina's mother gives them a daily blessing.
Amen.
It's so important for us to talk about our experience being undocumented here because we live in a country that doesn't recognize us and it tries to erase us in every way possible. Lo que tenemos es ganas adentro. Just that energy to be successful here.
Leanne Melendez, ABC 7 News.
President Donald Trump tried to rescind DACA during his first term, but that attempt was blocked by the Supreme Court. The ruling allows current DACA recipients to renew their permits, but does not allow them new applicants. In October of this year, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that allowing DACA recipients to live and work in the U.S. was unlawful, but continues to allow them to remain in the U.S. There are 183,000 DACA recipients in California, the most of any state. After the break, immigration advocates draw the wrath of the Trump administration for teaching immigrants about their rights.
Wait, you can't grab me like that. You can't grab me like that.
Viral videos of ICE agents arresting people in violent ways, dragging people out of their cars, others pointing guns at people in public. These videos are creating a lot of fear in immigrant communities. They've also given rise to Know Your Rights seminars to inform immigrants of their constitutional rights. These workshops are also drawing criticism from the Trump administration.
New signs are going up at a few Bay Area businesses. They simply state, restricted area, employees only. Those 4 words can prevent immigration enforcement agents from arresting an undocumented worker.
Urging folks to print a sign that says staff only beyond this point, basically the area that would not be accessible by any of your customers, so like your kitchen area.
Laura Valdez of Mission Action explains what the sign means to those San Francisco business owners concerned about immigration raids.
Should ICE come to your location, the only space that they're allowed to come in without a warrant is that lobby area. If they were to go in beyond that point and arrest someone, that is considered an unlawful arrest.
Advice like that has infuriated the Trump administration. Recently, President Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, expressed frustration to CNN that carrying out mass deportations has proved more difficult because of, quote, know your rights messaging.
You can call it know your rights all you want. We all know what the bottom line is. The bottom line is how they invade law enforcement. Don't open your door. Don't answer questions.
Homan recently asked the Department of Justice to investigate if Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez should be prosecuted for a Know Your Rights post.
She's telling them not to open the door. I'm not saying that's illegal. What I'm saying is I asked the Attorney General, at what point is it impeding and what point is it not impeding?
This kind of talk has immigration rights advocates becoming cautious about the advice they give.
If there's a raid and you inform everyone of their rights, you don't have to talk, keep your mouth shut, that's not harboring. But if you say, run, out that door, hide under here, you could conceivably be charged with harboring.
Yeah, we're going to attempt to apprehend on the corner.
Immigration rights advocates worry Border Patrol agents are getting more aggressive in who they detain during a raid. They say it is to stoke fear.
I'm going to have to break your window. Do you understand?
An example was caught on camera during immigration raids in Bakersfield in mid-January.
So you're transporting someone that is undocumented, correct?
Yes.
This video was taken by a gardener who, by the way, is a U.S. citizen while he was driving with a coworker. They were stopped and the coworker was detained under suspicion of being undocumented.
You're under arrest right now for alien smuggling. Actual federal felony.
The driver was eventually released. In this case, Border Patrol agents were wearing identifying insignia, but in recent raids, they have not.
It was unmarked cars. The agents are in normal wear and they're wearing a vest. Sometimes it says police and ICE.
Days after President Trump took office, San Francisco made it clear its police officers will not be involved.
The San Francisco Police Department does not assist in immigration raids.
San Francisco also reiterated its commitment as a sanctuary city, but it has to walk a fine line.
Sanctuaries are sanctuary criminals. End of story. They're sanctuary for criminals.
The White House is threatening to withhold federal funds to sanctuary cities.
We do not harbor criminals.
For San Francisco, that would be a loss of $3 billion in federal funds.
As a sanctuary city, no employee of the City and County of San Francisco is required to participate in any ICE activity. But I want to be clear, we are not impeding the federal government's legal authority to perform their duties around immigration enforcement.
Immigrant rights groups are equally prudent.
Please remember not to physically block ICE from entering an area. Use your voice.
The Supreme Court has ruled that immigrants, even if they are in the country illegally, have a constitutional right to due process and protection against unreasonable searches.
In raids, the authorities will use the threat of arrest for harboring. If you refuse to let them into an area that's marked private or employees only, and they don't have a warrant, but they want to go in anyway. Don't be intimidated by that. That is not harboring.
Immigration agents need a warrant, just like police, to search a home or private areas of a business.
You need to know the difference between a judicial warrant and an administrative warrant.
An administrative warrant is issued by the Department of Homeland Security. It's an arrest warrant for a person suspected of being in the country illegally. It does not allow immigration agents to enter private areas. For that, they need a judicial warrant signed by a federal judge with the specific name of the person they are looking for and the address of where the search will take place.
ICE can access public areas, can go into your business, but that does not give them the right to ask anything regarding your workers' immigration status. Your workers still have rights in those public areas. They have their constitutional right to remain silent.
Leanne Melendez, ABC 7 News.
Up next, a change for naturalization ceremonies. Ceremonies like this one are being replaced with simpler affairs as the Trump administration moves to make it harder to become a U.S. citizen. President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown has led to an increase in the number of people applying for U.S. citizenship. Applicants are finding the process has gotten a little bit harder.
What is the supreme law of the land?
The Constitution.
Rafael Belmonte is practicing for his citizenship test.
How many amendments does the Constitution have?
Like 54? Half of that.
Belmonte, a legal resident, decided to apply for citizenship after he was fingerprinted by immigration agents as he returned from a trip to Mexico.
Then they tell me, oh, if you don't want to have those kind of issues, just become a citizen. Every time you come back, we want to say, welcome to your home.
Read the first section, please.
He's among a group of students taking citizenship classes offered by the Immigration Institute of the Bay Area.
We got the president and then what?
The Speaker of the House.
No.
All of the people in the class are in this country legally. They're permanent residents and eligible for U.S. citizenship. Still, most did not want to appear on camera because of the fearful climate brought on by ICE enforcement.
Yo me quiero hacer ciudadana porque mis hijos todos están aquí. So you want to be a citizen because your family is here and they are citizens.
Some, like Victoria Perez, have been eligible for naturalization for years. The $700 fee can be a deterrent, but she finally made it a priority.
Residencia pues hasta se puede perder. Pero la ciudadanía no se pierde.
They can take away your residency, she says, but you can't lose your citizenship.
In the first 6 months of 2025, had at least double the amount of people reaching out by phone or email to me about joining our citizenship classes.
There's 18 questions that they can ask you only about the legislative branch.
The test consists of English proficiency and a civics exam. Last month, the test got harder. The number of possible civics questions went up to 128. Applicants used to only have to answer 10 of them. Now it's doubled to 20. They need to get at least 12 correct.
They've changed many of the questions, so they are more open-ended sounding. It requires more historical information and details about government. So it's a more challenging test for people who are ESL students.
Legislative. They're going to ask you, name the 3 branches of government. So antes, you guys didn't have to say legislative. Now you do.
The test can create anxiety for English learners. That's why IIBA helps them prepare by doing mock interviews with volunteers.
What month do we vote for president?
On November.
Great. My job is to really give them confidence, really try to calm them down a bit, and make sure that they perform really well.
The test itself is quite difficult if you just didn't study or didn't know. Like, for example, how many amendments does the Constitution have? Or who was the president during World War I? Those questions most Americans wouldn't know the answer to.
Failing won't jeopardize an applicant's resident status, but experts say it's a good idea for immigrants to meet with a consultant before applying for naturalization. The Department of Homeland Security is reviewing applicants' social media accounts and recently revived an old law that allows agents to interview neighbors of applicants.
The threat of neighborhood visits is that government officials will come to your neighborhood. If I were applying for citizenship, to interview my neighbors to see if I have exercised good moral character, whatever that means. Any possible hint of that you're not a good American is a potential threat.
The Trump administration recently canceled a $150,000 grant the Immigration Institute of the Bay Area was promised to provide legal services for naturalization applications. Last year, more than 800,000 people became U.S. citizens. Those who pass are no longer being sworn in at huge ceremonies like this one at the Paramount Theater.
To see everyone holding a flag, taking the oath, being in community together to celebrate being a U.S. citizen. And no, they don't do that anymore.
The Department of Homeland Security claims these large ceremonies are a security risk and stopped doing them in sanctuary cities. Ceremonies are now low-key affairs in immigration offices, with people taking the oath the same day they pass the citizenship test. And that's it for this ABC 7 News in-depth look at the immigration impact. I'm Karina Nova. Thank you for joining us.